Welcome to the Beauty in Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. So today we're going to talk about the 3 pillars of trust. Now this is a really good one. And so obviously I got the genesis of the idea from a guy that I read a bunch of his stuff. He's a guy that actually specializes in working with couples who are struggling really bad to a point where they want to get divorced. Name is Mort Fertel. You've heard me say his name before. But anyway, so I was reading something on him and he talked about 3 pillars of trust and it got me thinking about trust. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, but before we do that, August 19th is Tori's
day for us.
Yeah, it's Tori's and my dating anniversary.
That's right.
That's when we fell in love, August 19th. Well, I guess you can't put it on a specific day, but when we realized, yeah, let's do this thing. Let's start dating. Let's move toward marriage. It was August 19th, back late 90s. And I was a professional baseball player. And I remember that night, I don't remember, did I send you a song? Did I give you a song? Or maybe I played it in my truck and we listened to it together or something like that.
You played it for me. We were together.
Mm-hmm. And I said, this song right here is the song that basically summarizes how I feel for you. And we had known each other, so it wasn't weird for Tori. I wasn't like popping this on her 2 weeks after I met her. But this song, From Here to Eternity by Michael Peterson, was a song that I played for her that night. And you will just, you'll love it. I'm not going to play the whole song, but just, I love this. Because I came strong. I was like,
you moved in strong.
We're going to get married. I know this. I feel it.
I did everything I could to get you here tonight without telling you why. Now, girl, if you only would, please hold out your hand. Just close your eyes.
That's so good.
I've been dying to ask you one burning question. Will you be mine from here to eternity? I'm asking you to share your life.
That's so awesome.
Now and forever, I guarantee I'll always stay by your side.
I promise I'll stop in a second.
That may have been the longest clip we have ever done.
All I could think is that Tori was sitting here going, this song is it lasting in eternity.
From now to eternity. I remember you playing that and you said that you wanted to wait for me and that you wanted to marry me one day. And one day you had always known that you were going to play that song on your engagement night.
Yeah.
You wanted me to hear it because you knew that you were going to be playing it for me one day.
Yeah.
That's basically the intro.
Yeah, I probably had a few cheeseball lines in there, but I was feeling very romantic. But
you did. You played that for me on our engagement night as well.
Yep.
And so it was like
that song's always been special.
Mm-hmm. So it was this long, it was kind of like, this is what you're going to hear one day. And then you wait
Wait for it. So anyway, Michael Peterson, From Here to Eternity. Thank me whenever you're dancing with your spouse in the kitchen to that song tonight. Okay. Now let's jump into the 3 pillars of trust. Now, before we get into the 3 pillars, let's talk about trust. Relationships move at the speed of trust. So trust is all about security. Security is your core number one human need.
Right. And we got this from a dear friend of ours, Kathy Cook. She came in how many years ago? Probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And she did some training with some of us parents and some parenting training.
Yep.
And she taught us the 5 core human needs. And that has helped us so much in understanding not just our kids, but ourselves as well.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, she's a psychologist, and it's something that's been around in psychology for a long time. But she introduced it to us for the first time about 15 years ago. The concept that everybody has 5 core needs.
Yeah.
We have these top core needs, and our children do.
Yeah.
And it starts with security. Who can I trust? That's number one. And everything falls under that core, that very, very
That's
core
right. Yeah.
need of security. And
If you don't get that right, nothing else matters.
Right. So you have to start with the first one, which is security. Who can I trust?
Yeah, there you go. Can I say one thing on that real quick before you get to the other ones? Security is all about a who, not a what. And David and I, we travel and speak on this circuit called Life Surge. You need to check it out, by the way. Go to lifesurge.com. You can see what cities that we'll be in for the rest of 2023 and 2024. But we talk a lot about financial security, and we talk about how to build and grow wealth God's way. But we talk about how in the Bible, money, wealth, and riches is talked about more than any other single topic in the scripture. There's more than 2,500 verses on it. And the reason why is because financial security is a thing that we're not supposed to find our security in money. That's a what. We're supposed to find our security in God. He's a who, because he knows that money can take away what's rightfully his. He talks about it so much. So we're supposed to find our security in a who, not a what. Secondly, we then have to drill that down even further. We can't find our security, our ultimate security, in a human being. The ultimate security has to be in God. Then we find elements of that security manifested in humans, right? So I do find security in Tori.
Right.
I find it in Trey, in Allie, Jake. I find some security there in your parents, my dad, like there's my brother and all that, and sisters. And so I do find security there, but the ultimate security has to be placed in God.
Right.
Otherwise, you put too much pressure on the people around you when you find your security in them, and that's what leads to codependency.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before. So security is the core number one need.
Yeah. And you have to find it first in Christ. And if you don't, then you will not find it in your spouse. You will not find it in your relationships.
That's so true.
So number one is security. Who can I trust? The second core need is identity. Who am I? We are all asking this question. It's just in us. Who am I?
And you won't know who you are until you know who you can trust. That's why you can trust God.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you who you are.
So good. And then the third one is belonging. Who wants me?
Yeah.
And then fourth is purpose. Why am I alive? And then the fifth is competence. What do I do well?
Isn't it interesting that belonging is the number 3 need, and purpose, why am I alive, is below that? It's number 4. And I just think it's so incredibly important that when we find our security in God and the people that God has brought into our life, we find our security in them. I think there are some folks who have found themselves trying to find security in other people. If you're a stage personality, you stand on stage, you find your security in the audience applauding you, right? Well, how long does that last? It doesn't, and then the next thing you know, they're miserable. But if you find your security in God and the people that love you and are close to you, and then you find your identity in who God made you to be, right? The next thing of importance is the community and the family that you're in, like that sense of belonging. Within that community, within your family, is when you then find out why you were made. That's where purpose comes in.
Right.
Too many people are looking for purpose, but they're outside community.
Right.
And they're going it alone. It's not good for you to be alone. You need to jump into community wherever you are.
Yeah.
And your most tight-knit community obviously is your marriage. And then it moves into your family. And then it builds from there. So, and then competence after that. So those 5 needs, that's so incredibly important. Trust. So we're talking about trust. So security, who can I trust? Now, if relationships move at the speed of trust, then we need to talk about what creates trustworthy behavior. So I got these 3 keys from Mort Fertel, as I told you, and he deals with a lot of couples that are pretty much about to get divorced, or some that actually have already been divorced before, and the one of the spouses has come to him for advice on how you can get past this and how do you manage relationships at this point. So he's dealing with a lot of couples that aren't, that haven't been trustworthy or struggled in this area. And so in his expertise, he narrowed it down to 3 keys that he calls the pillars of trust. And so I want to talk through these keys with you guys. So number 1, and it, some of these are just so easy, but we'll talk about them anyway. It's number 1 is be a man or woman of your word. So be a man or woman of your word. You got to be fanatical about honoring your word. What's the saying? Your word is your bond.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to admit, and Tori, this is true with our own kids. Tori and I made a lot of parenting mistakes. One of our parenting mistakes, at least when the kids were younger, was not being fanatical about the exact time we were going to pick them up. So I'd say, yeah, we're going to pick you up after Awana's, and we had a couple of our kids who were really much like, if you tell me you're going to pick me up at 8:30, you better show up at 8:30.
Right.
Well, Tori and I show up at 8:40, 8:42, especially when the kids are younger. It's like, oh, we need just that extra 5 minutes to talk in the parking lot before we go pick them up and bring the tornado into the car.
Right.
And we pick them up at 8:40, 8:42 or whatever. And a couple of our kids, that has affected them still to this day as older teenagers. Like, they don't really trust us as much when we're like, all right, Jake, don't worry, man. Okay, Lundy, don't worry. Like,
right.
Allie, Trey, we'll be there this time. And they're like, oh yeah, sure you will.
Right. Now we're rebuilding trust.
And it affected them in more than just not trusting me and Tori to be on time. It's affected them in being able to trust people.
Yeah.
And they're rebuilding it. I mean, it's, in the eternal scheme of things, it's not a huge deal, but it's big enough to where Tori and I are like, I do regret that as a parent. If I can go back and do that over again, if I told my kid I'm going to be there at 6:30, I'm going to do everything humanly possible to be there at 6:30 or 6:25.
Yeah. Right.
I wish I could go back and do that over again. So if you get to a point where you can be consistently counted on, then you can be trusted. So make and keep promises over and over and over and over and over again. And that'll build trust. Okay, so that's number 1. Be a man or woman of your word. Number 2, now this is huge. And I never would have thought that this would have been a key to building trust. But here again, Mort said it, and he's talking with couples that, really have struggled. Number 2, be beyond suspicion. Be beyond suspicion. And he talked about how suspicious behavior destroys trust. Yeah. Just think about that. And it's so true. Suspicious behavior destroys trust. And then he goes on to say, listen, your spouse is the one who has to define what is suspicious and what's not.
Right.
We've talked about this before in affair proofing your marriage. How to affair proof your marriage. If you haven't heard that, I forget which podcast. It's probably podcast 15 or 16, something like that. Early on, we talked about affair proofing your marriage, but one of those things was not being suspicious, not doing anything that your spouse would consider suspicious. And there's a particular exercise that Mort has couples do if they're not divorced, but he has them do this. So one spouse will list out what they believe is suspicious behavior from their spouse.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I mean, it could be being on your phone late at night after I fall asleep. It can be that. It can be having a private Facebook account where I don't have the password to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could be what is suspicious behavior? It could be whatever it is. So the one spouse lists out what that suspicious behavior is. And if you've struggled in your marriage with trust, or insecurity, which, I mean, Tori and I have both had our bouts with this. If you go read our book, you'll see in the first 5 years of marriage, I struggled. I struggled with trust. I struggled with insecurities, and Tori had to put those at ease for me. But so there was some of this like, okay, I mean, there are guys out there who, if their wife is putting makeup on before they go out to dinner, he might say, well, what you putting makeup on? Who you want to look good for? You see what I'm saying? Like, you think that's suspicious when it's not really suspicious, but maybe there's something else deeper going on there.
Right.
So first, list out This is what Mort says. List out everything that you believe is suspicious or could be suspicious that you don't want your spouse to do. Okay. Then the next spouse makes a list of modifications to their behavior that will eliminate those suspicions. Or it might be something where you have to discuss it. Like, okay, for the wife to say, honey, when I'm putting my makeup on, I'm not trying to look good for somebody. I'm just not going to go outside without makeup on, you know? So then it's something that the husband has to work through.
Right.
Or vice versa. So one spouse lists out what is suspicious behavior and the other spouse lists out the modifications that they'll make to eliminate that suspicion. And I think that's really good. And you were talking about this earlier, Tor, before we got on the podcast about repairs.
Yeah.
About, you'll have to explain what repairs are. But to me, this is the way that a spouse can respond when another spouse thinks that certain behavior is suspicious.
Yeah. We've mentioned the Gottman Institute. They're a couple who have been around for years and years and years, and they have researched, or they have studied over 3,000 couples over, I think, is it
50 years?
50 years.
That's crazy.
And so they just have some really good information just from looking at those couples. And the biggest takeaway that they have is that a couple who stays together is a couple who repairs.
Yeah.
It's when there's a conflict or when there's any kind of issue, you can be sure that those couples will repair. And repair is just coming back to each other.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not running from it. It's always coming back. And an example that they give, it's not necessarily always coming back and saying, I'm sorry, or like what you would typically think of as a resolution to a conflict. Right.
Yeah.
It's just showing your, the other person in the relationship, either your spouse or your children or your friends, that you are coming back to them. Right. You are returning to them, to us. Like, I am aware of, even though this conflict is happening, I'm coming back to you. I love you. I care about you. I choose you. Right. It's just showing it that's what it's saying.
Yeah.
And so a repair can be, you and I are in the middle of a fight and I go to grab myself a cup of coffee and I say, hey, do you want a cup of coffee? I'm making coffee right now. That's a repair, because that says, I care about you. I love you. I'm still conscious of your needs, and I still want to meet them, and I still am aware of you and your emotions, and that's what it's communicating.
Yeah.
It's, they gave an example of there was a couple in the middle of a fight, and the guy says, they were like in this huge heated fight, and he said, do you want some cheesecake? And they just started laughing because they're like, yeah, like, okay, you care about me. We're going to be okay because we're going to repair this. Yeah. Like, it's this understanding that we will repair. Yeah. We're not going to leave this. We're going to repair it. And and I was reading that and we were talking about it. I was laughing because we had a conflict with one of our kids this week, and they were texting us, and it was like this pretty,
aggressive,
like, we had told them what we wanted them to do, and they were challenging that. Yeah.
You don't listen to me, that.
They were letting it all out, right? This is what I want to do. Why are you why can't I make this decision on my own? Why are you telling me what to do? Right. Well, we're not telling you what to do. We're parenting you.
Yeah, right.
And so we're going back and forth, and this child could be a lawyer if you read the text, but it was really sweet because we've actually never even talked about this, but naturally the way that I'm just going to say she. It's one of our girls. The way she ended the text was, P.S. I love you.
Yeah.
That is a repair. Yeah. It was like, I'm not really happy with you right now. But I'm coming, like, our relationship matters, and I love you, and I'm not going to be upset with you because we're in a disagreement. We're going to come back together. Yeah. And that's what it was communicating. I looked at that. I'm like, look at her. She's repairing. Yeah. Like, that's in her mind. She doesn't even know what she's doing, but she's repairing.
And what she wants me, because she actually sent it to me, not Tori, but when what she wanted, subconsciously, she wants me to trust that she still loves me.
Yeah.
And we're talking about trust. So she made that repair in the middle of kind of going off on me, which
Yeah.
I was laughing.
But it is like we both, Jason showed me that text and we both just started laughing because one, it's that, we talk a lot about bringing humor into a relationship because a lot of times when you are repairing, it does kind of bring, it's like, oh my gosh, we're fighting. This is kind of, but we're in it together. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you start laughing about it, but we were laughing because it was like, it really did make us feel connected to our daughter. Like it wasn't this fear of disconnection because we could see like right there and then and there, she's saying, I'm disagreeing with you, but I still want connection with you.
Yeah.
And that's what repair does. It's saying, I still want connection. I'm still for us. I'm still about you, even though we're arguing. That's the right way to fight.
Yeah. And I bring that up.
Builds a lot of trust,
Yeah.
right? Like you can, even for you and I, we're like, okay, we can trust. We can trust her because we know that she wants connection.
Yeah. And the next time she kind of goes off like that, and she did it respectful, so I didn't have to like deal with that. But next time she goes off like that, I really do know that she still cares about me.
Yeah.
Like all that. So it's good. And the reason why I bring that up in this point on being beyond suspicion is because when the one partner does feel a little suspicious of the other, right? You need to find out, is that based on anything that's true and real?
Right.
Or is it just based on an insecurity inside of you?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a combination of both. But if you really love each other and let's say the one partner doesn't feel suspicious of the other, but the other partner does feel suspicious, then when they make that list that says, here's some of the behaviors that you do that's suspicious to me and I just don't like it, and it could be that it's nothing, but I don't like it. I don't like you going out with this set of people, this group of people late at night or staying over on a whole weekend. Like I just don't like it. Well, the other partner operating in love makes a repair and says, if you don't like that, I don't do it because I love you.
Right.
Right? It's that's what I'm talking about.
And it's not
that's
saying,
healthy.
And it's like, a lot of times we think you have to stand your ground because it's not true. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not being unfaithful. I am trustworthy. So you just want to stand your ground and be like, no, you need to get over this. You need to, you need to work through this insecurity. But this is the love of your life, right? Like that you want them to come to a place where they can trust. And so you bend and you flex and you say, if you feel that way, then I would hate to feel that way. And so I want to help you to not feel that way. And so I'm going to do something, even though I am being trustworthy. Yeah. I am going to move towards you and I'm going to move towards this because I want to build trust with you. And then it's knowing that at some point you may be able to do the things that you want to do again because you're going to build that trust.
That's where I was going with that, because that's what happens with a repair, right? You are now repaired. So let's say you stop doing that thing that they consider suspicious or could be suspicious. You stop doing that thing for 5 years. And during that 5 years, what's happening? They're repairing.
Yes.
The insecurity in them is getting stronger. It's stronger in terms of getting better, and they're getting over it. And then the next thing you know, 5 years later, you're able to do that thing again.
Right.
Because they're healed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, but you did that, and you made that repair. Right. So that's number 2, is to be beyond suspicion. The 3 pillars of trust. Number 1, be a man or woman of your word. Number 2, be beyond suspicion. Number 3, be transparent. You would think this goes without saying, like, right? But in a great marriage, there are no secrets.
Yeah.
Zero, zilch, nada, niente, whatever you want to call it. Your spouse knows your password to your phone. Your spouse knows the password to your social media accounts, or you share accounts, right? There is no secrecy in marriage except secrets that you hold together.
Right.
Right? There can't be. And while I'm on that, it is a little bit of a soapbox for me, but while I'm on that, your friends, you need to be involved in your friends' lives in terms of both of you together. It's not like my wife has this group, I have this group, and whatever. I mean, yeah, you can kind of have a little bit of that, but you need to make sure that the husband is fully aware of the friends that you have as a wife and fully approves. And then the wife is fully aware of the friends that the husband have and fully approves. And you'll all know each other, because trust me, if the wife doesn't know some of the guys the husband's always hanging around, she can't use her powers of discernment to see whether or not he should really be hanging around him.
Yeah.
Right. So you need that. So we're talking about transparency, being transparent. Listen, Mort says this, and I love this. He says there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy is a virtue. Secrecy is a vice. So privacy is a virtue. It protects what you cherish. Secrecy is a vice. It hides something bad or wrong, and it's motivated by fear. So if you are like, my husband doesn't need my password, my phone, well, why? Why are you keeping it secret? Your phone is private, yes, but your husband has a right to get in there. So there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. So be private with each other, but make sure that there's two people that know everything that's going on. And I love this quote: "The absence of information is the breeding ground for trust."
Explain that, because when you first read that to me, it didn't process.
Yeah, well, it didn't either whenever I first read it. But the absence of information is the breeding ground of trust. So if we're talking about being transparent, we're talking about being beyond suspicion. We're not talking about you walking around suspicious of your spouse. Right? Now, if your spouse has done something, or you guys have gone through something where you are suspicious, I mean, obviously we had Jonas and Ann Byler on our podcast, and he said, hey, if there's something going on, you need to get a PI, private investigator, then go get it. And then I said, yeah, but at some point you don't want to keep investigating. Right. So you don't want to walk around suspicious. So don't become someone who's out to acquire knowledge about your spouse, like always watching them to catch them in something. Right. Because if you do that, you will catch them in something, and it's not always the thing that you think it is. Right. It's like, if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. And I wrote this down to kind of explain it a little bit better. If you feel like you have to spy on them, then you're never going to learn to trust them. So yes, you need to have the passwords. Yes, you need to be transparent with each other. But if there's just this insatiable desire to spy on them, chances are good that there's still an insecurity in you, or you're working through something that you haven't quite healed from, that actually really did happen. And so it's important in that for both spouses to just be fully transparent with each other. And that's so good. That's the 3 building blocks of trust. Be a man or woman of your word, be beyond suspicion, and be fully transparent.
Yeah, I love it. That's so good. I remember years ago, at the beginning of our marriage, just feeling suspicious.
Yeah.
And I remember the Lord putting it on my heart that I was kind of operating out of experience and not by the Spirit. And I remember when he put that on my heart, it was like, there may have been experiences with different people in your life that would cause you to be suspicious, right? But you can't just operate from those past experiences, because they're not always true. They're based on past experiences, right? And so there has to be this transfer and this pivot from, okay, I've asked you this, you told me no, right? I now choose to trust. I choose to operate not from experience, but from the Spirit. Lord, if you want to reveal something to me, I'm going to trust that you're going to show me, because you're God and you're good. And I'm going to put my trust in you. I've done I've done the work I need to do. We've been transparent. We've talked it through. Now I now have a choice if I'm going to trust or if I'm going to operate from, experience.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important place where, you have this time with the Lord where you're like, I don't feel totally free, but I'm going to trust.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. And I think Tori's suspicion, when we go back and look at it, it has morphed into something that's actually a good suspicion, because at times my personality in the past especially was kind of magnanimous, like very outgoing, like, hey, very, observant of, oh, so-and-so just got a haircut. Yay, your hair looks great, but then you don't know, maybe her husband didn't notice her hair and never said a word. And now all of a sudden that met a need in her. And I know that the motives inside your heart are pure, but I don't know what's going on there. So you got to be careful with that stuff. So it's important that you guys talk through this stuff and that you focus in on making sure that you find security ultimately in God, and then finding that security in each other. And the way that you're going to do that for your spouse is to be someone that your spouse can trust. You're going to do it by being a person of your word, being beyond suspicion, and being fully transparent.
So good. All right, real quick before we let you guys go, I made a calzone this week, and it was really, really, really good.
Domination
I feel like
Nation.
I tell you guys, I say things were amazing, but this was one of my favorite meals, honestly, that I've had in a long time. And our son Trey was home, and he said it was one of the best things he's put in his mouth. And then I gave my dad some, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." So,
do we have any left over?
Well, I froze some. You can actually make. So I made it with my sourdough bread dough, so it was healthy. So I just made my dough the way I always make sourdough, and then I rolled it out and made a calzone instead of letting it rise.
I want to pull that out of the freezer because I want some today now.
And so I made 2 huge calzones, cut them in half, and put them. You could put them in a Ziploc. So I have 2 halves in the freezer right now, and they really do reheat really well. And if you put them in the air fryer, they crisp up really well.
Yeah.
But anyways, from what I have been reading, Parmesan cheese is the healthiest cheese, along with goat cheese.
Yeah.
It's the easiest on your gut, whatever. So, and that's not a problem for me and you because we love Parmesan cheese. So this one was mainly with Parmesan. I did do a little bit of organic mozzarella cheese as well. And I just put a ton of meat. It
was so good.
It was ham and turkey and 3 different kinds of Italian salamis.
Yeah.
And then the Parmesan cheese. And then I used this pesto that I found from Earth Fare that's just olive oil based pesto, and it was
game changer. It
was so good.
Did you make the ranch dressing too?
Yeah, I did.
And it was so good.
Yeah, I did. I just did the Hidden Valley. That one wasn't super healthy, but it's with just buttermilk, mayonnaise, and Hidden Valley, and it tastes just like restaurant ranch.
That was good.
And
there we go.
Ranch covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah, it does. So does bacon
and butter.
Tori makes this bacon that is off the chain good. I mean, crazy good with I don't know what you put on it.
The one with the little bit of maple syrup?
Maple syrup?
Yeah. Oh, thick cut bacon. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Tori and I totally got into this new series on Netflix, and there's several different ones, but the one that we like the best, Chef's Table.
Oh,
so there's several different ones, but they have Chef's Table pizza.
That's actually what made me want to make this calzone.
Yeah.
Because they're doing pizzas, but pizza doesn't have protein, and I'm like, if you're gonna have carbs, you have to have protein.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, why not make it into a calzone?
But I'm telling you, you guys watch that Chef's Table pizza on Netflix. There's 6 episodes, and just the first episode, it'll pull you right in, and you'll be like, I love pizza, and I love people. I like?
You dipped it in ranch dressing, but do you know what I dipped it in?
What?
My calzone.
Oh, olive oil, some coarse salt, and red pepper, and Parmesan cheese, and Italian seasonings like Carrabba's. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Very nice. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. If you haven't taken our 5-day challenge, go do it. If you haven't read our book, go to the website, Beauty in Battle. But thanks for hanging out with us, and we will check you next time.
See you guys.
Peace.